Señores, el presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, ha aceptado un jet de 400 millones de dólares de un gobierno extranjero. Lo peor es que no solo es un capricho de lujo, hablamos de un escándalo que al parecer huele a corrupción, huele a chantaje geopolítico y un peligro real para lo que ahora sí sería seguridad nacional. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Amigos, hoy veremos cómo el demócrata Chuck Schumer critica a Trump por aceptar este avión de lujo de Qatar, afirmando que esto es una corrupción descarada. Así que los invito a que se queden hasta el final de este video porque veremos detalles muy interesantes no solo de esta noticia, sino que desde el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Pues bueno amigos, la supuesta intención por parte de Donald Trump de aceptar como regalo este avión privado ultra lujoso, por cierto, posiblemente para utilizarlo como el Air Force One, y que viene nada más y nada menos que del gobierno de Qatar. Hablemos de un país extranjero regalándole un avión al presidente de los Estados Unidos, que no solo queda en lo absurdo, va mucho más allá. Y Chuck Schumer lo define como una corrupción descarada. Veamos esta noticia.
All political appointments at the Department of Justice until the Trump administration addresses key national security concerns. Joining us now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. So as we understand it, Mr. Leader, there are three political nominees on the calendar. What positions are these?
One of them is a very important position. It's head of national security in the Justice Department. They're in charge of vetting people. And there are many positions. There are three right on the calendar, but there are many more in the pipeline and many vacancies. And I am putting a hold on every political appointment to the Justice Department until these very serious issues of bribery, of emolument, and of national security are answered.
I don't mean to sound cheeky, but do you think the Trump administration will care? Won't they just appoint someone into an interim position?
Well, you know, the bottom line is this is so outrageous that even Republican senators have voiced some concerns about this, have voiced real concerns about this. When it comes to national security, when it comes to a foreign country donating a plane that's Air Force One, and Air Force One has to be the most sophisticated plane in the world, it's a very, very serious issue. And I would believe that if anyone in the Trump administration cares about national security, they'll tell Trump to drop it, to not take the gift.
Do you believe that Qatar would put a listening device in that plane? Do something else to that plane?
Like this, you know, Katie, on something like this, you can't trust anybody. We go over, Air Force One is the most secure place around. This would be absurd to allow a foreign country. They could place listening devices in everything. And if they gave the plane and we took it over, you'd have to dismantle it from start to foot. It might even cost more than the plane itself. You'd have to look into every little bolt and every little, did they have a listening device in there? Qatar has proven to be sometimes a very unreliable ally. Or they're not an ally, an unreliable country. No, I wouldn't trust them at all.
What do you think Qatar wants in exchange for this plane?
Well, that's one of the things we want to find out. The bottom line is one of the issues out there is FARA, the act that says that foreign agents have to register. Who are the Qatari agents? What have they been doing? What have they been asking? What kind of relationships do they have with the president or people with in the White House? So these are all a whole bunch of very, very serious questions. And it is appalling. It's naked corruption. But it's also one of the great national security issues that we've had. You remember the issues with the Russian embassy years ago. We can't make that mistake again.
There's also right now a big discussion in Congress about Donald Trump's budget, what he calls his big, beautiful bill. You know, Republicans are talking about cutting Medicaid. Do you think that if they do that, that gives Democrats something to work with? Right now, Democrats have arguably have had a hard time finding their voice on pushing back against Donald Trump.
Look, we are united, House and Senate, Democrats throughout the country, in letting the American people know, and the American people are feeling it, how horrible these cuts are. This is the largest cut in Medicaid in history. Here's what's going to happen. 14 million people will lose their health care because of Medicaid and ACA. And the health care premiums of many, many more will go up. Loads of hospitals will close in rural areas, in urban areas. You make such a slash to Medicaid, these hospitals can't go on. Lots of people will lose their jobs, but even worse, people will have less ability to live a healthy life, less ability to survive with the drastic cuts. So the American people are totally on our side. And then when you think about it, Katie, why is they doing this? To give tax breaks to billionaires? God bless the billionaires. They made a lot of money. They don't need a tax break, particularly when it's going to make it far more likely that the health care of tens of millions of Americans will decline dramatically. You remember what happened with the ACA? They tried to cut it, and the public sentiment is everything, as Abraham Lincoln said, and the public rose up, and the Republicans voted against it. The reason they're having such trouble, one of the reasons they're having such trouble passing this bill, is there are a good number of Republicans who know how devastating this would be in their districts, and they want to vote no.
What should the Democratic position on immigration be? There's reporting from Axios that says that Democrats got a private briefing which told them to ditch their comprehensive immigration reform messaging. It's not working for them. And that arguably part of the reason you guys lost was on the message of immigration, just losing control of it.
Look, we have to get control of our borders. There's no question about it. Democrats want to do that. We want to be fair and humane and do what's best for our economy. But there has to be some control at the borders. And Democrats completely agree with that, as you heard Senator Gallego, who knows this issue very well, coming from a border state, talk about. His views, in many ways, are the sentiment of most of the Democratic caucus.
I want to ask you about Jake Tapper's new book on Alex Thompson. It's called Original Sin. They talk about a conversation that you had with President Biden where you encouraged him to get out of the race. You say, if he stayed in the race and lost to Trump, you told him this, then 50 years of, quote, amazing, beautiful work goes out the window. But it's worse than that. You will go down in American history as one of the darkest figures. The book also reports that Biden put his hands on your shoulder and said, you have bigger, I'm going to say huevos, it's not what the book said, than anyone I've ever met. Do you think Biden deserves the blame for the loss in 2020, 2024?
Katie, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in history facing us. We are focused on the future and doing right for the American people, plain and simple.
Did he say that to you?
We're looking forward.
Leader Schumer, I'm out of time. The bell is bailing you out, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ok, amigos, vamos a desmenuzar esto por partes. ¿Por qué es tan grave? Primero que nada, estamos hablando de Trump, un tipo que ya tiene un historial bastante cargado de escándalos, conflictos de interés, coqueteos con el autoritarismo. Entonces, cuando escuchamos que un país extranjero, que tiene intereses estratégicos en el Medio Oriente, de repente quiere regalarle un jet, lo primero que uno piensa es, qué generoso, ¿cierto? ¿O qué quieren a cambio? Ahí es donde entra Chuck Schumer y dice, ¿no? Esto no es solo un regalo, es potencialmente una herramienta de espionaje, un caballo de Troya con alas, y es que realmente podemos creer que Qatar va a regalarle a Trump un jet de lujo, sin esperar tal vez acceso, influencia, favores políticos en el futuro. Y ojo amigos, esto no se trata de paranoia, ¿no? En inteligencia, en defensa, cualquier artefacto donado por un gobierno extranjero, mucho más si es un avión presidencial, es automáticamente visto como un riesgo. Micrófonos ocultos, software de vigilancia, puertas traseras electrónicas, y no solamente eso, vámonos al punto, ¿no? Favores políticos. Seguramente saldrá alguien a decir, bueno, pero si el avión es mejor que el que ya tiene Estados Unidos, ¿por qué no aceptarlo? Total, es gratis. Porque no hay regalos gratis, amigos, cuando hablamos de geopolítica. Si un país extranjero te da algo de tanto valor, lo hace porque espera algo de vuelta. Y ese algo puede ir desde acceso a secretos de Estados Unidos, influencia en decisiones diplomáticas o militares, ¿no? La presidencia no es un juego de trueques de millonarios. Además, pensemos en el mensaje que esto podría mandar al mundo, ¿no? Que Estados Unidos, la potencia más poderosa del planeta, está dispuesto a aceptar limosnas de gobiernos extranjeros. Humillante, ¿no? Muy peligroso, por cierto. Sobre todo, una traición a la independencia y la seguridad nacional de tu país. Pues bueno, amigos, no todo es este problema con el caso de corrupción, porque en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos actualmente hay un gran problema con el tema de pues, los recortes, ¿no? En medio de este debate que prácticamente todos los días se ve más polarizado sobre lo que es el futuro del sistema de salud en Estados Unidos, hemos visto cómo la representante Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ha lanzado una de las críticas más contundentes en contra de los recortes propuestos por los republicanos. Acusó al Partido Republicano de utilizar unos argumentos matemáticamente erróneos para justificar una medida que terminaría afectando a millones de personas. ¿Por qué? Simple, las cuentas no cuadran. Aseguró esto denunciando que mientras los republicanos señalan a los inmigrantes indocumentados como responsables del gasto, estos recortes impactarían a decenas de millones de ciudadanos estadounidenses. Durante esta intervención legislativa, ella señaló que los republicanos afirman que cerca de 1 millón de inmigrantes indocumentados reciben cobertura médica mediante Medicaid. Sin embargo, también aprovechó para advertir que los recortes propuestos terminarían más bien afectando a 13.7 millones de personas, muchas de ellas, obviamente, ciudadanas estadounidenses, lo cual es pues muchos, yo creo que esto no es un misterio, ¿no? Dependen de este programa. Nos pidieron que leyéramos este proyecto de ley y lo hicimos, fue lo que dijo. Y bueno, lo que encontró fue algo que va mucho más de simples ajustes presupuestarios. Pero bueno, escuchemos lo que dijo.
The gentlelady from New York is recognized for her 3 minutes and an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 13.7 million people, 13.7 million Americans will be cut off from their health care and made completely uninsurable by the bill that Republicans are presenting today. You know, there's a lot that I've been hearing, and I've been listening to my Republican counterparts here today and what they've been saying about this bill. And the math is not adding up. They're trying to convince people that they are cutting millions of undocumented people from payroll, from Medicare, acting as though this is what's going to save it. Even if you believe everything that Republicans have said today, they are identifying 1 million, their claim, which I dispute, but if you believe them, their claim is that 1 million undocumented people are on Medicaid. So why are they trying to cut 13.7 million Americans off their health care? By the Republicans' own Energy and Commerce tweet this morning, their claim is 7.6 million people are somehow ineligible for health care. So why are they cutting 13.7 million Americans off their health care? They've asked us to read this bill, and we have. This bill bans the people that they kick off of Medicaid from even buying their own insurance from the Affordable Care Act exchange. So once you are kicked off Medicaid, you then can't even buy your own health insurance. It increases costs for people who they deem eligible and who are low income and forces them to pay even more. And if you have a private insurer, don't worry, you're getting screwed over too, because your healthcare premiums are going to skyrocket from the disaster that is happening from this bill. We've done assessments, because if you live in a rural community, you're going to be hurt too. In New York 23, 25% of people are on Medicaid in this area of upstate New York. Westfield Memorial Hospital will be at risk of closure. UPMC Chautauqua is at risk of closure. Schuyler Hospital at risk of closure. California 23, where 46% of people are on Medicaid. Redlands Community Hospital at risk of closure if this passes. Victor Valley Global Medical Center, Loma Linda University Medical Center, all at risk of closure. Colorado 8, 24% of people in this community are on Medicaid, and Platte Valley Medical Center will be at risk of closure if these cuts pass. Who do you believe? The people who are trying to cut this, not, by the way, to cut from quote-unquote undeserving people.
Ok amigos, esta crítica por parte de Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez no se detiene en los beneficiarios actuales del Medicaid, porque ella señaló que también los costos médicos aumentarán para quienes aún puedan conservar esta cobertura privada. O sea, si tienen una aseguradora privada, no se preocupen, también los están estafando, porque sus primas de atención médica pues, se van a disparar debido a todo este desastre. Este razonamiento no solo es retórico. Es simple, amigos, cuando se reduce el acceso público a servicios médicos, la carga va a recaer inevitablemente sobre el sistema privado. Y esto, al final, genera un aumento en los precios para todos. En otras palabras, este recorte al Medicaid no solo afecta a los más vulnerables, ¿no? Sino que también es un efecto dominó que toca a toda la población. Según estimaciones independientes, por cierto, de la Oficina de Presupuestos del Congreso, estos cambios, que son propuestos en este proyecto de ley republicano, podrían dejar sin cobertura médica a más de 8.6 millones de personas durante la próxima década. No es todo, porque al mismo tiempo expiran otras protecciones legales, lo cual significa que millones más estarán perdiendo su seguro hasta 2034. Entonces, esto, amigos, automáticamente convierte este proyecto de ley en mucho más que una reforma técnica. Es una transformación estructural del sistema de salud y se está presentando bajo un disfraz de austeridad fiscal. El verdadero costo va a ser pagado por familias trabajadoras, por adultos mayores, por personas con discapacidad y con niños. Este proyecto de ley no solo ataca al Medicaid, también a programas claves, amigos. Aquí tenemos el programa de asistencia nutricional suplementaria, ¿no? Para muchos tal vez lo conocen como cupones de alimentos o SNAP EBT en su tiempo, si bien recuerdo. Va a restringir el acceso a estas ayudas, especialmente familias que son monoparentales. Va a limitar aún más el apoyo gubernamental a quienes viven en situación de pobreza. Por eso, amigos, es muy importante entender lo que está sucediendo en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Los proyectos de ley que se están debatiendo o se están aprobando. Pero bueno, amigos, pasemos al último tema, y es algo que sucedió en los últimos días. Y es que luego de días, de semanas, de meses, ¿no?, de declaraciones agresivas, promesas de aranceles del 80, del 140% en tensiones comerciales crecientes, Donald Trump parece haber dado marcha atrás. Una decisión que ha sorprendido a los mercados, a los analistas por igual, al gobierno estadounidense, ¿no? Anunció una reducción temporal de los aranceles sobre China, pasando del 145% al 30%. Será como pues parte de una tregua, supuestamente de 90 días, acordada tras una reunión en Ginebra, ¿no? ¿Una victoria diplomática o solo un respiro ante nuevas batallas? Lo cierto, amigos, es que este giro estará marcando un momento crucial en la relación económica entre estas dos potencias, las más importantes del mundo, si es que lo tomamos en cuenta. Pero bueno, escuchemos esta noticia.
In the staring contest between the Chinese government and Donald J. Trump, with the world's economy hanging in the balance, Donald Trump appears to have blinked first. News breaking today that the U.S. and China are reducing tariffs for 90 days. After talks in Switzerland over the weekend, the Trump administration is now lowering tariffs on Chinese goods to 30% from the rate Trump had set, which was 145%. The Chinese government is lowering tariffs on American products to 10%. Now, that 30% number on goods from China is still higher than what it was before Trump came to town, but it is a significant drawdown from the current rate. News of the reprieve in the trade war started by Trump sent markets soaring. The Dow Jones today closing up more than 1,000 points. Trump called the cut in tariffs a, quote, great reset. His press secretary went further, calling it, quote, an extraordinary first step in the right direction. But Let's be clear about what happened here. Donald Trump started a trade war, and Donald Trump blinked in the war he started. New York Times writes it like this, quote, in a research note, Mark Williams, chief Asia economist for Capital Economics, said the agreement was, quote, another substantial retreat from the Trump administration's aggressive stance because it does not include any commitments by China on its currency or trade imbalances. In other words, Trump got no assurances that China would work to fix the reason Trump imposed the tariffs in the first place. That is, ostensibly, the country's trade deficit with China. Now, Charles Gasparino, he's a reporter over at Fox News, tweeted this, in part, quote, breaking. Trump raised tariffs on the world, the markets, particularly the bond market, which we need to finance our debt. They rebelled. Trump then was forced to back off. End of story. Film at 11 of the president spinning this as a major victory. What we have seen is a little lesson on how markets exert their power. How, when you have to depend on them, as we still do, you can't go to trade war with the world without bad stuff happening, end quote. Again, that was from Fox News. And there is, of course, still uncertainty and more of it ahead, whether the U.S. and China will strike an agreement or whether they won't. And businesses could once again face a tariff rate of 145%. All of that remains to be seen and worked out. Even this temporary relief may cause new problems and have unintended new consequences. New York Times reports this, quote, businesses will likely encounter a flood of pent-up demand leading to soaring transport prices as companies race to schedule shipments during the 90-day negotiating window to take advantage of the lower tariff rate. The impacts are likely to show up at what has been the front line of Donald Trump's trade war with China, our nation's ports.
Amigos, esto no es nada nuevo. ¿Por qué? La tensión entre Estados Unidos y China es algo que ha oscilado enfrentamientos abiertos, acuerdos temporales desde hace muchos años. Trump ha hecho de los aranceles uno de los pilares en su política exterior, especialmente contra Beijing, recordemos 2018. Ha argumentado siempre que Estados Unidos debe de proteger su industria nacional y combatir prácticas comerciales injustas, aunque sabemos muy bien que estos aranceles no le funcionan para nada. Pero bueno, detrás de estas decisiones hay realidades económicas muy, pero muy complejas. Y eso es una realidad, amigos. Aumentar los aranceles no es algo que solo afecta a China, afectan a los consumidores, a las empresas estadounidenses. Muchas dependen netamente de cadenas de suministros globales, todos interconectados. Cuando esas cadenas se rompen, es donde el costo recae directamente sobre tú, sobre yo, sobre nosotros, sobre las familias y los bolsillos. Amigos, ese es el problema de los aranceles, y ese es el problema que Trump, pues, en este momento no sabe cómo digerir. Pero bueno, amigos, muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dejarme tu like, compartirlo con tus amigos y suscribirte a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.